probably for the wrong reasons. But what I would like to offer you, I don't know if you hang around in the academic circles too much, but we found two new verses to the Bible that were left out early on, and one of them is supposed to go in the book of Revelations. So, for those of you who are familiar with the book of Revelations, and I'm not really that familiar, but apparently there's something called a rapture. And everybody who's going to get to heaven gets there at a time. So the verse that was left out of the book of Revelations goes something like this. You know, all the souls that are going to be there are there. Jesus is walking around checking out everything, and he sees a fellow with a big beard, kind of like Todd here, and he looks sad. And so Jesus goes over and says, "Pardon me, what's the problem?" And he says, "Here you are in heaven, everything's going well." And the man says, "Well, you know, in life I was a carpenter, and I lost my son at an early age. Lived on earth just to do good things, but I lost him." And Jesus looks at him, he runs over and he throws his arms around him and he says, "Father!" And the man with the beard jumps up and yells, "Pinocchio!" All right. Yeah, that was supposed to be in the book of Revelation. I think it's the book at Disney. All right. So, let me explain a little bit about what's going on here. Nick asked me to speak, and when he did, I said, "What do you want me to speak about?" And he said, "Well, you're teaching a new course called Minus God, which I'll talk about in a minute. Why don't you just talk about that?" And I said, "Well, that's fine. That'll take about 3 minutes. What else would you like me to talk about?" He said, "Well, you're a philosopher, you teach philosophy. Why don't you talk about the meaning of life?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's what everybody does. Oh, you teach philosophy, what's the meaning of life?" And so I said, "Let me think about it." And after I thought about it, I thought that would be a pretty good thing to talk about at this kind of meeting. First, I want to thank Fact for inviting me. It's nice to see a group of fellow freethinkers. And so let me address the two things that he asked me to talk about. First, my course is going to be taught for the first time this next semester, starting in January. And it's going to be called Minus God. It's going to be called Minus God. I did not think up the name. It's a little bit kitschy, if you will. And but my boss, Dr. Eve Browning, and the head of the Philosophy and Classics Department, thought that would be a good name. And I'm an ex-military person, so I behaved responsibly, and I said, "Yes, ma'am, that's a great name. I wish I'd thought of it myself." But that's the name of it. What is it? Well, it's going to be, if you don't know about the philosophy department at UTSA, it's pretty heavily, not heavily, they teach quite a few courses in philosophy of religion, the Bible as literature, and so on and so forth. And so I asked Dr. Browning, I said, "You know, we need to do better than that." And so she said, "Well, we'll go over the course, and this is going to be the first go at it. We're going to talk about free thought, secular humanism, atheism, and all the big buzzwords that we like. And we're going to talk about certain kinds of issues. Let me check my notes here so I can tell you a couple of them. Yeah, so we're going to talk about some of the, I haven't finished the syllabus, and when I do, I'm going to send it to Nick and John, and they can post it on the Fact newsletter or whatever. But some of the things we're going to talk about are, what are the requirements for ethics if there is no God? Because, you know, most people think that ethics comes from some religious tradition, and perhaps some do. But we're going to talk about ethics without God. We have a book on that by Kai Nielsen, who you may or may not know. What's the role of science in the philosophy of non-belief? How do the arts contribute to understanding the concept of truth, in quotes, if you will? And can life have meaning without God? And that's going to be the crux of my discussion today. And any other issues that may or may not be germane to the world of non-belief, if you will. We'll also talk about things like the problem of evil, proofs of God's existence, and so on. So those of you who have ever taken a philosophy course probably are aware of those, and if not, come sit in on the course and join in. And as for the mechanics of the course, Nick did ask me to talk about that as well. It's going to be once a week on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock. If you'd like, you're more than welcome to audit the course. The rules for UTSA auditing, of course, are quite simple. If you're over 65, it's free. And if you're under 65, it's $50. So it's effectively cheap. The only thing that most professors ask if you audit the course is that you show up. And don't come every third week or something and we say, who is that person? All right? So that's pretty much the course. And if you're interested in it at all, I have a few of my business cards, and I'd be more than happy to be at the end or chat with you or whatever. Now, for the crux of the second question that Nick asked me to talk about is the meaning of life. And that's the topic for today. What is the meaning of life? Well, I suppose you could retort and say, well, if the meaning of life existed, wouldn't we have already found it? Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Well, everything revolves around the concept of meaning. What do we mean when we say meaning? You see, even the word meaning when we say meaning seems a bit awkward, doesn't it? If meaning was objective, like this, or an object like this table, or that bottle of wine which I'm focusing on, it would seemingly be found by now, or at least we'd have some inkling of what it was. But it seems that there's no such objective meaning for life, if you will. So, perhaps the meaning of life is subjective. But the problem with it being subjective is, you say to yourself, well, if it's subjective, things that are subjective are relative and can't lead to truth. Therefore, the question has no meaning. It's incoherent. And there's something to say about that. But, you know, being philosophers, we don't give up that easily. So what do we do? What do we do? So let's look at a couple of ways we can approach belief. Two of the easiest ways to think about belief is, let me use two philosophers of some note. One is W.K. Clifford, a British philosopher, 1800s. And Clifford says, we have no right. Matter of fact, he calls it a sin to believe something without sufficient evidence. And I think that view probably rings true with many of us in this room. Without evidence, why should we believe something? And the reason he says that is, well, if we believe something without sufficient evidence, we find ourselves believing things that may not be true, but we think they're true, and therefore we pass them off as true. And he said it's a sin to believe something that's not true. Sounds good, almost a scientific approach, if you will. But then comes along William James, who was a first-rate American philosopher around the same time, a little after Clifford. And for those of you who studied psychology, you may remember William James as either the father of American psychology and or the brother of Henry James, the great writer. It must have been an interesting family, yeah. But in any case, what does James say? James says, not so fast, Clifford. I don't know if you ever addressed Clifford personally, but he says, look, there are decisions we have to make in life that we cannot ever get enough evidence for, and yet we're obliged to make a decision. He calls them genuine options. They have to be momentous. They have to be something that you can't pass on making a decision. And he says, for example, two that come to mind are whether or not you're going to believe in God. That's a momentous decision. Because if there is a God, you should address it. And if there's not, you should try to understand why not, rather than just say there is no God. Or, the other one he uses is decision to get married. He says, you're never going to get sufficient evidence of whether or not you should get married. If you're looking for evidence, you'll never get married. And he says, well, we need to ask ourselves, what do we do now? He says, if it's a momentous decision and you must make a decision, you do the best you can. Why? Opposed to Clifford, who says it's a sin, the word he uses, to believe something that's false, James says you need to make the choice because even though you might end up believing something that's false, you run the risk of foregoing something that's true. So it's the same problem, different twist. So what are we going to do here, we philosophers? Well, we're going to ask ourselves, does life have meaning? It's a decision. If there is an answer, we'd like to know. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that the meaning of life, the question of the meaning of life is an incoherent question. If an answer to the question exists, the answer has to be attainable by everyone who seeks the answer. Presumably, such an answer does not exist. What kind of response would even qualify what is the meaning of life? One might posit that to require an answer already available to all. It has to be already available to all. No such answer seems to exist. Any possible response would seem to fail because there's no ironclad reply. How can anyone know the meaning of life? We might ask, where is your evidence for it? Clifford. But evidence of some sort seems to be needed. So we don't want to fall into Clifford's trap of committing the sin of accepting something that's false. Okay? On the other hand, there's always on the other hand. If you're a philosopher, this is great because you get out of anything. On the other hand, however, but these are great words for philosophers. On the other hand, simply giving up and saying, I will not make a decision on life's meaning seems to be relegating us to the position James says we must avoid. In other words, not making a decision is making a decision. It's a negative decision, but it's a decision. So now what are we going to do? Are we stuck? What's a philosopher to do now? Well, we want to just punt and say, hey, the meaning of life is unknowable, or there's no such meaning, so let's forget the whole question. You know that's not going to be the answer for a philosopher. So, what do we do? Let me suggest a possible way to get out of this predicament. First, the question, what is the meaning of life, is unanswerable because even if such an answer exists, we have no way of discovering the answer. Absent some God-like figure who can tell us with certainty what the answer is, we have no alternative than to say we are stuck. So now what? We push on. So let me talk a little bit about some folks who've addressed this question. Albert Camus, for some of you who are existentialists, may or may not be familiar with, but Albert Camus, French literary genius, philosopher, he says we one day might be standing on a corner. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. And we've been waiting for the bus. And all of a sudden, it will hit us. Like getting hit in the face with a left hook or whatever. That this whole thing is absurd. Life is absurd. I'm sitting here, and, what, me? Here, in the middle of this universe? The world doesn't care about me. If I disappear right now, standing on the corner, the world goes on. The world doesn't care about me. And he said, and you're my world, dear. But aside from your dog, spouse, and maybe a few others, the world doesn't care. The world doesn't even know you're here. And so now you're kind of alone in the world. And he says, what's the response to realizing that there is no meaning to you being here? You could have not been here at all. Somebody else could have been here in your place, and all these funny philosophical questions. He says, how can we even approach that knowledge that the world's absurd? He says, oh, three answers. Because the first answer is we can commit suicide, because what's the point? You know, if you're a nihilist, that might be an answer. He says, but that's cowardly. And he says, we can't do that. And then he says, with some interest to this group, the other option is we can accept religion to give us the answers to our life and give it meaning. He says, but that won't work either, because religion is nothing but intellectual suicide. Those are the words he uses. And the third option is to accept it and try to live with the absurdity. All right? So now what? So how do we look at all of this? Well, let's go back 2,500 years to a fellow named Aristotle. My Aristotle button here, if you want to come look, you can see what he looked like. Yeah, Aristotle says everything, and he means everything, from a grain of sand to humans, to trees, you name it, has a function, or an essence. And that function is preordained. If you're an inanimate object, something man-made like a table, then the essence of that table is preordained by whoever designed the table and built it. Likewise, he says living things, be they trees, cats, humans, whatever, they also have an essence. There's something they're preordained to do. For example, your cat is going to be nothing but a cat. It's not going to make decisions about the world or anything else. Aristotle says for humans, our essence is defined happiness. And he defines happiness in a certain way. It's not all giggles and grins. It's to live a virtuous life. And if we live a virtuous life, then we will find true happiness. All right? So, if you follow Aristotle and all the philosophers that followed him up until the existentialists, your essence precedes your existence. There has to be some concept of what you, the table, your cat is going to be. For living things, that preordained concept would probably be in our DNA, right? You can't be anything other than what your DNA says you're going to be. And for Aristotle, he says, happiness for us. Now what? Now come a group of folks we call the existentialists. Many of you know the beginning existentialists, Friedrich Nietzsche, perhaps, Soren Kierkegaard, and certainly many of you are familiar, at least with the names of the existentialists of the 20th century. Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, and so on. And what do they do? What do they say? They say, this is all wrong. We're still going to get to the meaning of life here. Don't go. Yeah, you're waiting for it, huh? Okay. They said, here's where we've been wrong for now, up until now. One is that, yes, essence precedes existence, except for humans. For humans, it's the other way around. Our existence precedes our essence. How does that work? Well, okay, let's look at some other Hamlet objects. Let's look at your dog or your cat. They cannot be other than what they are simply because of their DNA. They will be a cat. They might have some differences, but they're not going to make decisions and decide to become a wombat, right? The existentialists say, for humans, it's different. They're going to say our existence precedes our essence. Why? Because in order to have an essence, there has to be something that preordains that essence, like the builder of the chair or the DNA of a cat. But the DNA of a human doesn't preordain their essence. Why? Because we can do something that no other being on earth can do. We can make choices. And when we make choices, we define what our essence is going to be. So think of it this way. Everybody in this room is here because of the choices they've made from the time they were born, including the existentialists. You will be wherever you're going to be based on the choices you make from here on out. And since every one of us makes different choices, presumably by free will. We don't need to get into free will determinism and all that. But if we all make choices, we define our own essence. And guess what? Unlike a cat or a dog, by our choices, all of which are different between and among each one of us, we all have a different essence. So your essence is going to be what you make of it. Your choices are going to define you. You know, you can't go out and blame the big universe. You make the choices, this is where you are. So now what? In a nutshell, it goes something like this. Life, overall, for all of us, there is no overarching meaning of life. There couldn't be. Because each one of us is given our own lives particular meaning. So we have made our lives meaningful for ourselves. So our meaning, if you want to say meaning of life, we each give our lives meaning. And for each one of us, that meaning is different. So that's basically it. There's no answer to the overarching question, what is the meaning of life, meaning some cosmic truism that fits us all. But we all have given ourselves some meaning. So the task for us is to make it meaningful. Now we can go on from here, we won't, but if you take my existentialism class, we go way beyond this. But we talk about how do you make a life. You know, the existentialists are often blamed for being kind of stick in the mud, you know, not ethical and all that, but I can recommend things to read, so it's probably more ethical than anything else you've seen before. It's not relativism, for sure, even though we all might end up in a different place. So, what are we going to do here? Let me see what it says on page 10. Yeah, so the existentialist mantra, if you will, is for man or woman, existence precedes essence. What does this mean for our question about life's ultimate meaning? Simply this: in the case of everything excluding Homo sapiens, the thing or being itself can never be anything other than what that thing was meant to be it a rock, a twig, a Mona Lisa, your dog, a catfish, the Constitution of the United States, or a thunderstorm. For humans, the case is different. We're the only beings who can make rational choices. Choice, the operative word here, allows us to become whatever we choose to be. The claim follows: one who is one is solely by the choices one has made in one's life. You are who you are because of your choices. Choice is not an option for a grain of sand or a manatee. When their existence ends, they will have been a grain of sand or manatee because they were destined to be sand or manatee. Not so with men and women. We're in a continuous process of making ourselves through our own personal choices. No two people ever make the same choices. So each person creates for him or herself a life. To put the case more simply, an essence. Since life is a process, our essence cannot be determined until we have completed the process, or to put it more bluntly, until we're dead. Such a claim cannot be made for anything or being except human beings. So this choice-driven process may give us the answer we are seeking to our initial question. While the question, what is the meaning of life, has no ultimate answer, we should not despair. The answer to the question, does life have meaning, on the other hand, seems to have a definite, positive, uplifting answer. Yes, we make our own meaning through our choices. We make our own essence through the continuous process of choice. Our conscious and often unconscious choices allow us to plan for our future, choose who we love and how we love, how we will treat our fellow beings morally and ethically, whether they believe in fairy tales or not, drink Merlot or Chardonnay, or live with a cat, a dog, or both. Our choices are endless. The only caveat is one cannot go in reverse. Each individual, whether he or she is where he or she is by choice. Our choices determine where we'll go. Hence, only we can give our lives meaning. So as I began this short monologue, we're looking for something uplifting and apropos of the holiday season, right? Life should give us some joyous moments during our lives. If you recall, I claimed the answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, leads to good news and bad news. The bad news is there is no overarching meaning of life. The good news, however, should be uplifting. The good news is that we individually make meaning for our lives by choosing our essence as a result of the choices we make. As the old U.S. Army slogan goes, be all you can be. We, every one of us, can be all we can be if we choose wisely. After all, our essence is our own. We can make it as we see fit. At this festive event during the holiday season, what could one ask? We, each and every one of us, can make a life of meaning, directed by our own choices and not directed by the whims of myth. Again, thank you very much for this. And before I go, there's one other thing that was left out of the Bible. All right? Now, you've all heard the story about a crowd that was stoning the harlot when Jesus comes by. And what does he say? Yeah, he who's without sin cast the first stone. Well, what they left out, what happened after that? Jesus walking by, the crowd is stoning the harlot, and he says, stop, ye who was without sin, cast the first stone, and a rock comes flying right by his head, hits the harlot right in the head, and knocks her down. And he turns around and says, Mom?
We have time for questions. If you want to pose anything about your personal role in happiness. Yes. Jeff.